I imagine that, Hunter, your scene with Eric was a difficult, challenging one to film. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about doing that.
Well, HBO's been using an intimacy coordinator for a lot of its productions, and she's, Amanda, she's been really great in sort of providing a safe environment within a safe environment for us to work in. And, you know, my job was just to make sure that Hunter was okay, and I feel like, conversely, Hunter felt the same way. And then we had the buffer between anybody who might have wanted to influence the scene in a different direction. We had Amanda. And I think it's worked out pretty well. I think a lot of other productions are using it. You know, it's safe. I mean, these scenes are very difficult to do. You know, and anybody watching, you know, certainly not this scene, but some of these other scenes, you know, it might look like it's fun, but you know, it's very exposing and raw, and it's difficult when you have a lot of eyeballs on you. So Amanda's been an asset for us.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to imagine like a set where an intimacy coordinator wasn't there, because it's my first like acting anything, and so like to have her there was like great, and like it seemed like a good means of communication, and also, yeah, I mean, Eric was great and like super accommodating, and we like.
Yeah, I mean, irrespective of what you saw on the screen, it was a fun day at work, really.
Good to hear. Yeah.
So I have a question. You're making a show that's primarily for adult audiences, right? And I'm wondering how you go about balancing the reality that sex is a part of teenage lives without basically buying into the overt sexualization of teenagers and their bodies, and how you think about that in a sensitive way to where you're being honest, but you're also not crossing a line of just creating something that continues that fetishization of young adults.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid question, because I think anytime you put anything on screen, it runs the risk of glamorizing it just by the sheer nature of it being on screen, right? So how do you portray drug use? How do you portray sex or sexuality in a way that that feels authentic to being young? And I think with respect to the sex scenes, you know, there's a lot of movement in this show in terms of camera. You know, we storyboard every episode. It's about 880 storyboards per episode. So we know every single cut before we go in there. And I think in terms of the sex scenes, I think one of the thing that, the main thing that I think we try to do is to just keep the camera still. If you look at that scene between Cal and Jules in the motel, it's like, it's a shot of her face, it's a shot in the mirror, you know, and that's it. And I think you want to allow for the awkwardness and the discomfort to really, you know, start to bleed into it, because that's what almost all sex when you're young is like. It's awkward. It's like, I don't want to be here. I don't this, you know. And at the same time, you know, I think I just, you know, it's the same thing with drugs, where I'm sensitive to, you know, portrayals of drug addiction. I don't want anyone. I have a child. I don't want anyone to watch something that I
like romanticizing it.
Yeah, romanticizing it. But I think we also have to be authentic about it. And we have to say, well, what are the purposes that drugs are serving in one's life? Why is there a desire to do drugs? And I think people can tell if we're pulling our punches and we're not showing the relief that drugs can bring. It starts to lose its impact, because drugs can, you know, drugs are not the solution, but they can feel like it at times, and that's what makes them so destructive. So I think it's something that we're really mindful of, and I think there's a lot of conversation about it, and kind of internally, and also it's stuff that we talked about with HBO. It's like we want this to really feel like when you're in these scenes and you're watching these these young people who are maybe making mistakes or definitely making mistakes. You want to feel a little bit of helplessness and that feeling of please don't do that, don't go there.
Cool. Thank you.